everyone, I'm Olivia and welcome back to another video. This tutorial is going to show you how to create Royale High hair texture designs specifically for black hair types, and there is actually one thing I wanted to say before I start with the tutorial. I don't have much experience making hair designs specifically for people of color or with different hair types. I just know that there is definitely a lack of variety of hair types in Royale High right now, and I've tried my best to learn all I can and make somewhat of a solid technique just so that I can give you guys the resources and allow you to hopefully adapt and better this technique so that we can get some more quality variety of hairs and broaden the representation that we have in Royale High. So I apologize if this tutorial is not the best, but I encourage you to look into these custom brushes that I will link in the description and experiment and try to make your own. So without further ado, I'll start the tutorial. So here we are on IBIS Paint X. You can access this on your phone or on PC, and we're going to click on My Gallery and then click on the plus in the bottom left corner. Our next step is to make sure our canvas is 256 by 256 because that is the required file size to be able to submit them to Royale High. So we're going to click OK. I like to zoom out my canvas a little bit, and I'm going to show you a few of the custom brushes that I was talking about. These are absolutely amazing, and I can't emphasize enough, definitely check these out. So here is a curling brush. I actually have a whole video on how to use this brush and make curly hair textures if you want to check that out. And these are some other brushes. This Dreadlock brush is actually my favorite and the one we're going to be using for the majority of this video. So like I said, I'll be putting the links to these custom brushes in the description of this video. If you want to look for your own custom brushes, you can click the online tab and go in the search bar and search for whatever type of brush that you want. So now that we've seen some of the brush options, I'm going to show you how to make a pretty basic hair texture design using the Dreadlock brush. And after that, we'll move on to doing more multicolor and ombre designs with the Dreadlock brush as well. So our first step is to pick out the base color of our hair design. I'm going for a brown, but as always, you can pick whatever color you like. And once you have that, we're going to make our brush size a little bit bigger, and we're going to click on our ruler and make a horizontal ruler, so 180 degrees. And we're going to switch to our soft felt tip pen. You can find this in the basic section near the top. So I've selected my felt tip pen. We're going to make our brush size bigger and start making our base. So we're going to make an ombre that goes in towards the middle, so you're going to get progressively lighter colors as you go towards the inside. Once you've finished with the basic ombre on our first layer, we're going to add a filter that will blend these colors together. So we're going to click on the paintbrush and hit filter, and in the blur section we're clicking moving blur. We want our strength at 150 and our direction at 90 degrees, so straight up and down, and as you can see we have our blended ombre. We're going to move our ruler and change it to 90 degrees, and we're going to add another layer. So we click the plus sign right here and change it from normal to the setting multiply. Once we've done that, we're going to switch to our custom Dreadlock brush, and we're going to begin putting our strands of hair on the canvas. So the ruler really helps with this. We're going to put our color at pretty much the first color you used for your ombre, and the size of these strands are going to be up to you. As you'll notice, I'm putting these down rather slowly, because the faster you put these dreadlocks down, the thinner and less filled in they're going to be. So you can see I did that really fast. It's very thin and not filled out well. So I'm just slowly going down and filling out the rest of my canvas. Once you're done with that, we're going to go ahead and add another layer. So we're going to click the plus, and this time we're going to switch it from normal to the setting add. And we're going to turn our transparency to about 50 for now, but we'll change that later if necessary. So we're going to turn off our ruler and switch back to our soft felt tip pen. And this is the layer where we're going to be adding some highlights because our dreadlocks look kind of flat and they're all the same color. So this is going to make light appear in the middle of each dreadlock, you can see that I'm just doing some little zigzags all the way down, and I've changed my color to a lighter shade of brown. So whatever color that you've chosen for your dreadlocks, you're just going to pick a lighter shade of whatever that is. So we're just going to go all the way down with our zigzags along all of our dreadlocks. And once we're done drawing our zigzag lines, we're going to go back to our moving blur filter and blend out the lighting on our strands. So we're going to click on the paintbrush and select filter, and under blur we're going to hit moving blur. We're going to keep our direction at 180, but we're going to change our strength to somewhere really low on the scale, because the lower we have our strength at, the more concentrated our light highlights are going to be. So this is where I've chosen to have my highlights at, and you can go in and change the transparency on your layer if you're not happy with the way it looks. But once you are, we're going to move on to our next step, which is to adding roots to our hair. So we're going to add another layer and select a darker shade of our color. So I'm going to be picking a dark brown because we want our roots to be darker than the base of our hair. So I'm changing my setting from normal to multiply, and using our soft felt tip pen, we're going to draw straight lines on the top of our hair, change the transparency to a little bit lower, and do the same thing on the bottom. Once we've done that, we're going to go back to our moving blur filter, and this time change the direction to 90 degrees and have our strength at full. So this makes the top and bottom of our hair look darker and more natural. So now we're going to add our last layer, which is adding one more layer of highlights onto our hair. If you like the way it looks now, you can pretty much end it there, but I'm adding another layer of highlights, so I'm adding a new layer and changing it from normal to add, and putting my transparency on the lower scale somewhere around 30. So I'm putting my ruler back on, and I've got a really light shade of brown, and we're just going to go up and down in triangle shapes, and you want about 2 lines worth of this. And once you have your 2 lines, we're going to do the same thing as last time and go to our moving blur filter and keep the settings the same, except if you want to adjust your strength, or you can also do that on the main layer as I am doing. I'm turning the strength of my transparency down and therefore making the highlights less visible. So this is pretty much the end of making our basic hair texture with the dreadlocks. And in the next part of the video, we're going to learn how to use multiple colors in our dreadlock texture. So as you can see, I'm back with a blank canvas, and on the left side, we're going to be doing split colors with our dreadlocks, and on the right, we're going to be doing an ombre style. So once you're ready to start, you're just going to select the colors you want and make sure you have your felt tip pen equipped. So as you can see, I'm just drawing my lines on the screen. I'm turning my ruler on so they're nice and straight, and I'm keeping in mind what size I want my lines to be. And once you finish up with your first color, you can go ahead and switch to your second color and fill in the gaps you left with your first one. It can be a little difficult to get them even, but we can always go back and fill it in later if we don't like the way it looks now. So once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and add another layer and change the setting to multiply. This is the part where we change to our Dreadlock brush, or whatever type of brush you're using for this. And it can be difficult to fill in your lines. You just have to play around with the brush size and your spacing a little bit until you get it perfectly even and clean. So once you finish filling in your first set of lines, you're going to go ahead and switch to your first color again and fill in the rest of the spaces. And once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and get rid of our ruler and add another layer. We're going to change this setting to add and put our transparency at around 50, and this is the layer where we're going to add our highlights. So it's going to be very similar to our basic one, except we're going to be alternating the colors we use on our highlights depending on what color strand we are currently on. So you'll see me putting this green highlight only on the green strands and my blue highlight only on the blue. And when you've finished putting your zigzag lines, we're going to go back to our moving blur filter, and we're going to change the strength to whatever transparency we like the best, however concentrated we want it to be. And at this point, I'm just going to go in and clean up my lines if they don't look exactly right or they don't actually match up with the strand that they're on. So I'm going back to my first base layer and back to my base colors, and I'm just cleaning up my lines a little bit. So once we've cleaned up our lines, we're going to go ahead and add our next layer, which is going to be the roots, and we're changing this from normal to multiply. And the process for actually adding our roots is pretty similar to the first technique that we did earlier in the video. We just need to be mindful that the color of our roots matches the strand that we're putting it on. So I'm putting my blue roots on the blue strands and the green on the green. And now that I'm done, I'm going to my moving blur filter, changing it to 90 degrees and putting the strength at full, just to blend out the roots onto my base layers. So now we're going to add our final layer, which is the final layer of highlights, and we're going to change this to add and put our transparency at around 30. And just like last time, we're going to put our highlights in kind of triangle shapes and have about 2 rows of them, just being sure that we're matching up the strand of hair to the color that we are highlighting. And once you've put the moving blur filter on, you've pretty much finished up with your alternating colors of dreadlocks. And the next thing we are going to do is move on to our ombre side over here. So first we're going to pick our color and establish what we want our base ombre to look like. So I'm going to do pink to purple, and we're putting our ruler on, and this time we're going to make it horizontal. So I'm moving my ruler out of the way and starting to put my pink at the top. And I'm just going to get progressively closer to purple the further I go down the screen. So once we finish up with our ombre, we're going to go back to our moving blur filter, keeping our direction at 90 and our strength at 150. So you can see that it blends everything out, and now that we've done that, we're going to add another layer and change it to multiply. So this is where we're going to put our dreadlock strands, and I recommend picking a color that is equally in the middle of whatever 2 colors of the ombre you're going for. So I'm pink and purple, so I'm going to choose a color that's in between both of those. That way the strands aren't particularly like blending into one of your colors, and you can easily see it on both sides of the screen. So once we finished putting down all of our strands, we're going to turn off our ruler and add another layer. We're going to change our setting to add, and this layer is going to be where the individual highlights on our strands are. So you're going to want to start with the first color of your ombre. So my pink color is at the top, and I'm going to progressively get closer to purple the farther down I get on my strands. This does take a little bit more time, but it definitely is worth it to make it look as realistic as it can be. So now I'm putting my moving blur filter on, making sure to change my direction to 180, and as you can see it looks awesome. And now we're going to add our root layer, which is going to be multiply, and we're just going to use our felt tip pen brush, and at the top I have my pink color. So I'm going to be adding straight lines down the top and changing my color to purple on the bottom. So whenever we're done with that, we're going to once again use our moving blur filter and change our direction to 90 degrees and put our strength at 150. And now we're going to add our last layer, which is the highlights, and we're going to change our setting to add, put the transparency at whatever you want because we can change it later. I'm putting mine at around 30, and just like with the last one, we're going to do about 2 lines worth of triangles going up and down, and making sure that our first line goes along with the color we have on top of our ombre, and our second line goes along with our color that is at the bottom. So now we're going to do our moving blur filter one more time, and it looks absolutely awesome, and we can adjust our transparency however we want it, and after that you are done with your ombre. So this is pretty much the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to make these textures. I will definitely put the links to the custom brushes that I used in the description. As always, if there's any other type of tutorial you want to see from me, let me know in the comments. And if you use this tutorial to make a hair texture of your own, please DM it to me on Twitter. I would absolutely love to see it. But other than that, I think we're pretty much done. I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll see you later. Bye!